Welcome into Sports Memo's betting podcast. This is the soccer and golf betting edition with our expert, Nick Borrman. Nick, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey, Drew. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. You think it's a good weekend here for soccer and golf betting?
Yeah, we got no Premier League action this week. They're off this weekend and play next week. But golf is exciting. We have the Farmers Insurance Open. It's Tiger's first tournament of the year, so I'm excited to watch that this weekend. Yeah,
Tiger's first time back in how long?
He played. There was that called the match against Phil Mickelson back on Thanksgiving weekend. But before that, his last tour event was the Tour Championship, which was in September last year. So it's been quite a while.
Okay, so you want to talk golf first or soccer first?
Either or. But we can talk. Since we're talking golf, we can talk a little golf now.
Yeah, let's talk a little golf. So it's his first time back in any real type of competitive golf situation since back around Thanksgiving. I mean, how do you think he's going to fare here? You think he'll be all right?
Well, historically, it's hard to get a read on him. Compare the second half of his career to the first half. He was week in and week out the most dominant player that we'll ever see. Back in his heyday. But the last few years, he's been playing so irregularly because of injury. It's when he takes his time off, he tends to come out slow, and then he builds on that through the season. It wasn't until the last event of last year before he finally got back to the winning circle. But every time he would take a couple week break or a month break, that first tournament back would be like you could just see like a little rust, a little couple mental mistakes here and there. And then if he played back-to-back weeks or 3 weeks in a row, you would see him right back in the top 10, right back competing. So I'm thinking that rust was probably going to be an issue here. Although I thought that was going to be the case last week with Phil. I actually made that my best bet last week going against Phil Mickelson. The guy came out and shot 60, which was 12 under par in the first round. So that didn't work so well last week. So, but we'll see how it does this week with Tiger. But either way, I just love watching the guy. He's awesome for the game.
Okay. And guys, if you don't know Nick, you can check him out at sportsmemo.com. Also on Twitter at Borman00. He's a golf pro, which there's a couple things behind that. It's a written test, and you have to actually go out and shoot a certain score, right, Nick?
Yep. Written tests and then a playing test. You got to shoot a certain score and play 36 holes in a day and be able to do that. So it's a challenge for most people to be able to accomplish that part.
Okay. And we have a bunch of different services up at sportsmemo.com for his betting service here. He's got a PGA Farmers 5-pack up with his 5% play in golf. That's just $35 up at sportsmemo.com. Also, you can get a longer-term package. Usually there is a lot of savings there. Up to 90-day golf pass for just $200 there. So check that out. You got a free play up here. I believe, in golf, you're like in. I can't even pronounce his name, but looks like you're fading Bradley and getting plus money doing that, huh, Nick?
Yeah, we're going with Snedeker.
Sneds.
Good old Sneds. Yeah. He's got a great history at this event. He's won it twice, and he always plays well here. So just a guy that's really good at this particular location.
Yeah, and make sure to check that out on his homepage at sportsmemo.com. A plus money free play there with analysis if you want to read the full analysis there. Nick, how would you look to take advantage of maybe Tiger being a slow starter here with kind of rust? It's been a while since he's played. Are there certain bets you can take advantage of in golf?
Well, they usually will have prop bets of Tiger usually gets prop bets that other players don't get. One that he was getting a lot on his injury comeback was, will he make the cut, which would have been a joke to even ask that question years ago. So that would definitely be an offered prop out there. And I would say, that the guy here, listen, this week is at Torrey Pines. And if you follow golf at all, it's hard not to mention Torrey Pines and Tiger Woods in the same sense. The guy literally has made a career better than some tour pros. Entire careers at this place. He's won 8 times at Torrey Pines. One of those was the famous 2008 U.S. Open win where he won on a broken leg. That was actually his last major win. So he's comfortable here. Even if he's not up there near the top of the guys at the end of the week, he's going to make the cut. He's going to be in contention or be a name they'll be following all week. But I just think he might have a few loose shots here and there this week and probably won't be a winner. I won't be surprised if he's up there in the top 20, and I certainly don't expect him to miss the cut. So I think I think if they do offer that bet, he's a pretty good lock to make the cut this week. And I think top 20 would probably be as high because they also offer like finishing places, top 5, top 10, top 20 for certain players. So I would think top 20 would be a safe bet for him as well. I don't know about the top 10 though. I'm not sure if he's quite ready for that with the layoff.
It's been since '08 since Tigers won a major.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. He won 14 majors between that first Masters win in 2008, and he hasn't won since. He finally got back in the winning circle last year, just in a regular event after a 5-year hiatus. 2013 was the year he won before that, but it's hard. He was injured. He had all those issues off the golf course with his wife and that whole affair thing. So I still love the guy. I hope he plays well. He's great for the game. But yeah, it's been a long time since he's in there, and I know a lot of people want to see him back up there.
And you bring up, his personal life, and we all remember that. Is that something that you need to be handicapping in golf, like what guys are going through off the golf course, or no?
For sure,
they're able to separate it.
For sure, no. Golf's a mental game, and any distraction you have, I mean, it's just you versus the course out there. So any distraction you have going on in your head, you're not going to play the same. I mean, most of these guys aren't getting into legal troubles or extramarital affair type of issues, but you never know. A lot of times, what I'll notice is babies, guys having babies and expecting to have babies. You see that actually more often than not. They're due this week and they're playing and they have their cell phone with them. They can get that call anytime, and I've seen that affect players before. And then of course that'll affect their schedule after the birth of their child. But yeah, anything that you can see out of the ordinary. I mean, these guys are just routine and habits. So once you get them out of that routine and habit, it can throw off everything in their week and in their game. So yeah, definitely something to pay attention to. I
love the angle you just brought up, because I don't try to beat the golf markets at all. I'm interested in talking about it and betting it kind of for entertainment, just because of our podcast. But I do bet baseball, and when you bring up having the baby, what's it called, paternal leave?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Paternal leave. Yep.
And if there's any baseball bettors out there, a real sharp angle is pitchers' first start back off of paternity leave is always a fade scenario there, and it's interesting that it carries over to golf as well. But Nick, we got to get to soccer here soon. Did you want to throw out anything else golf-wise for this weekend?
Yeah, just I guess a quick preview of the course here. As I mentioned, they're playing Torrey Pines this week. There's actually two courses there, the North and South course they play. Most people are familiar with the South. That's the famous one. They're going to play the first 2 rounds. They'll play 1 round at each course, and then they're going to make the cut, and then they'll play the last 2 rounds at the South course. South course is a lot harder. It's 7,700 yards, which is long, compared to the North, which is just over 7,200 yards. The North's 1.5 strokes easier on average than the South each of the last couple of years. But this tournament is a lot tougher and different than what we've seen the last couple of weeks. You've been seeing scores of 25, 26 under par the last couple of weeks. Adam Long ended up winning last week at minus 26. You're not going to see that this week. Jason Day's the winner last year. He shot 10 under and won in a 3-man playoff. And over the last few years, I mean, the highest winning score here has been 13, maybe 14 under par. So not as many guys under par, is not going nearly as low. Fairways are tight. Rough is a lot longer. And you need distance here if you're going to be able to have any chance. Historically, the guys that have done the best here have been the longest players off the tee. And if you're not finding the rough, the fairway, the rough is difficult to hit out of. There's a reason they had a U.S. Open played here, for God's sake. So it's a tough course. It's going to really we're going to be looking for guys that can hit the ball off the tee with some good distance, and of course still be able to keep it in the fairway. A couple guys that I think will do well this week are Tony Finau. He finished tied for 4th and tied for 6th the last 2 years. So just another situation where you got to have a guy that's good at the course. And he's played well here in the past. And then Mark Leishman, he's just as hot as anybody. He's got 4 straight top 5 finishes in the last 4 tournaments, and he's already got a win this year as well. And then Charles Howell's another name. A couple weeks ago we talked about Wiley. He was perfect 19 for 19 in making the cut there and ended up finishing top 10. And this week he's 16 for 16 in cuts made here. And he's got 3 second place finishes and 8 top 10s. including a tied for 6 last year. So guys that have played here before and have played well here before tend to repeat the performance. So those are the guys I'm looking at. And of course, anything distance off the tee will be a bonus this week.
Repeatability, big thing in sports betting. So good breakdowns there with golf, Nick. Heading to soccer now. Football, some may refer to it as, and Nick has a 5% top-rated play going on Saturday in Bundesliga, and it's priced at $30 at sportsmemo.com using the coupon code NICKHALF, the podcast coupon code NICKHALF at checkout. We'll take half off of that price. You can get it for just $15 there. That also comes with, guys, remember 5% plays come with 150% credit back guarantee. So if you lose, you get 150% back to your account. Nick, let's break down some soccer games. We got France League One here on Sunday. We got Rennes at PSG. PSG -2 or -2.25. Total of 3.5. One, can you just remind us on what -2 or -2.25 is for the soccer bettors out there that might be a little bit newer to the sport, and also your analysis on the game?
Yeah, the reminder, the quarter goal handicap is it's two different wagers when you take that line, and it's a half goal either side of that. So -2.25 is actually half your bet on -2 and half your bet on -2.5. So if they win by 2, you push the half you have on 2, and then you lose the 2.5 bet. So it's kind of like a half wager loss. If they win by 3, you're going to win the full wager.
Okay.
So for this game, the casual listener out there, I can guarantee if you don't know the name Paris Saint-Germain, you will at least know one player on this team, and that's Brazilian star Neymar. He's played as expected this year, scoring 13 goals in 13 games, but he's missed 5 games over the last 2 months with some various minor injuries. But with the weapons PSG has up front, they can afford to rest pretty much anyone and not miss a beat. I mean, they're absolutely stacked. Besides Neymar, they have Kylian Mbappe, he's 20 years old. He was the star for France in their World Cup win this past summer. He's got 17 goals this year already, including a hat trick last week. He's the future of this team. He's under contract until 2022, and after paying $180 million 2 years ago to Monaco for him, and at just 20 years old, they're going to be keen on trying to keep him as long as they can. So he's an awesome player to watch. And then if those two weren't enough, they also have Edison Cavani, who's older by comparison at 31, but still a great player. This is his 6th season in Paris, and he was the guy before Neymar and Mbappe arrived. But even this year, he's still got 14 goals. And he's now up to 130 goals for PSG in 178 career games. So he's been around for a while for this team and been a scorer for a while for this team. So they're stacked up front. But besides that, they have very strong midfield play. Di Maria, Rabiot, Marco Verratti, their back line, Thiago Silva, Marquinhos. They're just fantastic. They've limited opponents to 10 goals in 19 games this year, and they've only conceded 3 goals in 10 home games. And they've scored 37 at home. So they know how to defend the ball, they know how to possess the ball, and they know how to put it in the net with the guys up front. But before that, they won last week 9-0, actually, which is a scoreline you don't see too often in soccer. But before that win, they were on a run of 6 straight home games without covering this number. They had a draw against Napoli in the Champions League, and they actually lost against that same team. They beat 9-0. They lost to them 10 days prior to that. And then they had 4 one-goal wins. So they haven't been putting up the goals until last week, as they were in the beginning of the season. But they can be as scary as anyone in terms of scoring goals. But I think Rennes has the squad to cover the number this weekend. They're right in the middle of the table, 9th right now with 8 wins, 6 draws, 7 losses. They finished 5th last year and qualified for the Europa League, which is the secondary tournament in the European market behind the Champions League. And they qualified for the playoff rounds, which start in a couple weeks. So they're not a championship level team by any means, but they're certainly a good enough and strong enough team to compete with, all the big boys. They have just 1 loss this year by more than 2 goals, and that they've played 30 games. So it's rare that they get blown out by anybody. And since that loss, they've rallied off 6 straight wins, before just a recent 1-goal loss and a draw in their last 2 games. So they're playing better at this moment. And these teams played back in September. PSG won 3-1. But that was a long time ago. PSG was arguably playing their best, and Rennes was playing their worst. But even then, the game was close. I mean, PSG only got 2 more shots on target than Rennes did in that game, and the overall shots were 14-15 compared to 4-6 on target. So it was a close game. Possession wasn't that much in favor of PSG. So, I think if we see anywhere near those numbers again here, Rennes makes sense to jump behind them. They've covered the spread against PSG in their last 3 meetings. And if they're going to do so here, it's just going to come up on their ability to limit PSG shot attempts, which they did in that first meeting. So, if they can limit them and if they can get on the board, I think that's going to be a hard number for PSG to cover. Price is currently 115 to 125 to get the 2.25 number. Some books are only offering +2, but that's usually a plus money at like +110 or so. But I think if you can get in on the Rennes number at +2.25, I think it's worth a few pizza and beer dollars, I like to call them, Drew.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what's the best way for the listeners out there to watch these games? Are these games watchable in the States?
So it depends on the league, and it depends on the time of day. Like, this game is probably not going to be watchable in the States unless you have a subscription to. There's a couple things out there. There's one called Fubo TV, which is a sports specific subscription. It's like $40 a month. And you get tons of soccer channels, but you get all like the major U.S. sports channels as well, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, all these other ones. So, it's actually depends what you're doing for your cable, but you can almost choose to go just these sports packages and get all these European games as well. But Watch ESPN is $4.99 a month. They have a contract with Italy Serie A, so they air every Serie A game through that app, so you can stream it on your computer, on your tablet, whatever you have. So it's a good way to watch Italy. Most Premier League games you'll be able to see on NBC Sports Network. So it just the French games are hard to watch in the sports unless you have in the States unless you have a specific subscription to them.
Okay, and what's the reason EPL isn't playing this weekend?
They are playing cup matches this week weekend. So it's just that they have we've talked about before. They have other tournaments besides the league play that goes on. So they're actually going to play Premier League matches midweek next week on Wednesday. So just nothing this weekend. They'll be picking up midweek next week, and then they have just a couple random cup matches this weekend.
Okay. And guys, Nick has his 2 5% plays up. One of them in golf you can get with the PGA Farmers 5-pack up on his homepage, and also the Saturday Bundesliga 5% top-rated play at sportsmemo.com. You can get it for half off using the coupon code NICKHALF at checkout. Moving down the slate here, a few games left. Germany Bundesliga Saturday game. Hanover at Dortmund. Dortmund minus 2.25. Nick, total of 3.5.
Yeah, so this is top of the table versus almost bottom of the table, but we've talked about it before, how important these games are for the teams down at the bottom of the standings too, fighting against relegation. So this is a big game in the league. Dortmund is currently 6 points clear of Bayern Munich in the standings, and that's important because Bayern Munich is 6-time defending champions of the Bundesliga, so there's a lot of pressure right now on Dortmund to try to end that run this season. They were actually the team that was the last title holder before Bayern started their run, so they're, of course, hungry to get that title back from them. Interestingly, if you look at the odds, though, to win the league, the odds are dead even right now for Dortmund and Bayern to win the Bundesliga. So you can see the betting markets think that a collapse, I guess, is coming from Dortmund. But what'll be nice for this league is the last 6 years when Bayern has won, they've won the league by as little as 10 points. But last year, for example, they won by 21 points. So these teams play for 3 points a win. That means the league is ended, or not ended, but it's decided weeks to months ahead of when the season actually ends. So it'll be good to have some excitement for a title chase all the way to the end of the season this year, which looks like it's going to be the case. But back to the game at hand here. Dortmund, the reason they've been so good this year has been their midfield play and their defense. They've scored 4 goals several times this season, and they even had a 7-goal outburst once earlier this year. But the difference for them has been their ability to maintain possession and limit opponents' chances. And they seem to have evolved as the year has gone on. Early in the season, you saw those big goal outbursts, but really lately we haven't seen that. They've scored more than 2 goals. They haven't scored more than 2 goals in over 2 months now. The last time they did was against Bayern Munich, 3-2 in a win 2 months ago. But so they're on a run of 9 straight games with 2 goals or less. And earlier in the season, they had scored 3 goals or more 9 times in the first 15 games. So you can see how much different their results have been recently. They're also on a run of 9 straight unders, staying under this total in 9 straight games, including a 1-0 win last week, which they got just 4 shots on goal and held Leipzig to just 5. So what's going to be interesting for them is how they're going to handle playing Christian Pulisic the rest of the year. He was transferred to Chelsea over the holiday break, and last week was the first game they had playing after that transfer happened. So he's still with Dortmund for the end of the season, but they know he's not going to be there next year. So, do you play him as much as you can because the guy's good and he can help you this year, or do you look for other rotations to kind of build upon for the following years? This week, it's not really an all-hands-on-deck type of a game, so I won't be surprised if they don't start him this week. They didn't start him last week. He only came off the bench to play 15 minutes, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same thing here this week. But it'll be interesting to see how they play him the rest of the year. But Hanover, they're near the bottom of the standings because they should be. They've got just 17 goals this year, less than 1 per game, which is the third lowest in the league, and they've conceded 36, which is the third most in the league. So it doesn't set up well for them here. But like Dortmund, they've been playing in a lot of lower scoring games lately. They lost by the same 0-1 score this past weekend, which they were only able to produce 1 shot on goal. Their opponent, Werder Bremen, they just dominated the shots in that game, and I'm expecting the same here on Saturday. 5 of the last 6 games for Hanover have stayed under this total. And earlier this year, these teams played. They played to a 0-0 draw in Dortmund, producing just 3 shots on goal for Dortmund, and Hanover didn't get a single shot on goal. So I'm expecting, maybe not that low of total on shots, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a 2-0 win here for Dortmund in a low-scoring game. I think Dortmund should easily win. I just 2.25 goals right now because they're not scoring. I don't feel comfortable laying that. I wouldn't be surprised if they did win 3-0, but I don't see them scoring 4 in this game. So I think that'll be enough here. I don't think Hanover is going to get on the board, and I think under 3.5 is the way to play this one, Drew.
All right, Nick. Well, we got 2 in Italy Serie A. We got Saturday, Napoli minus a half a goal at AC Milan, total of 2.5.
Yeah, so Napoli, they're the better team. In the last 10 meetings, they got 7 wins for Napoli, 2 draws, and just 1 win for Milan. Napoli, they were unlucky in the Champions League. They got drawn into the toughest group there. They were alongside of Liverpool and PSG, and they ultimately were finished third and bounced out of the competition, and now we're down in the Europa League. And it's always a weird situation when you have the top teams drop into the Europa League playoffs, because remember, that's the secondary European tournament, so their aspirations for that tournament aren't nearly as high. But their schedule is going to stay tight now with the Europa League picking up next month. So they're going to have league games, domestic cup matches, and European soccer. So it'll be interesting to see how they attack the Europa League and if they're really sending their best 11 starting guys to those games. Champions League matches, no doubt. That's priority number 1 for everybody in the Champions League, and you're going to rest players even in league games so you're ready for the Champions League. But the Europa League, some of these big teams don't approach it the same if they don't have to. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach that for betting opportunities going forward. But for now, they're focused on Serie A. They're 9 points behind Juventus for first place, and if they want any chance to catch them, they have to win here Saturday. They've got just 3 losses this year. All were on the road, but they were losing to the other top teams in the league, Juventus and Inter Milan. So they're a solid team. AC Milan, they've just notoriously underperformed for the money they've spent in the transfer windows the last few seasons. They finished 6th each of the last 2 years, despite spending over $210 million in the summer 2017 transfer window. And laughably this year, they were ousted from the Europa League, unable to qualify over Betis from La Liga and Olympiacos from Greece. So even with all the money spent on their players, they just can't perform. They just don't play well together. The managing hasn't been great. The lineups haven't been perfect, so they've struggled. Right now they sit in 4th, but teams 4 through 8 in the standings are only separated by 4 points. So a loss, draw, whatever, they could drop down in the standings really quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them back down into that 6th position come the end of the season. But their goal is to finish top 4 and earn Champions League soccer for next year. So in Serie A, as long as you finish top 4, you get into the Champions League for next year. So they know they're not going to win, but that's their goal right now is to finish the top 4. If they want any chance in this game, they have to keep the ball away from Arkadiusz Milik, he's got 7 goals in his last 6 games for Napoli. He's a young guy, didn't start the season, but he's blossomed in that role the last month, and he looks like he's there to stay. Along with Mertens up front, they produce a really strong 1-2 combo. They take the most goal attempts per game at 14.5 compared to the league average of 10.5, and they produce the second most shots on goal at just over 7.5 per game compared to the league average of 5.5. So they're definitely an offensive-minded team. Milan, they struggled against Juventus when they came to town back in November, losing 0-2. Juventus controlled possession of that game and outshot them 8-2 on target. Napoli is on a level close to Juventus, not quite there, but they have all the players to travel to the road and beat a good team like Milan. So for me, this game is just about Milan disappointing me over and over again over the last few years. And I kind of think they're pretenders in the big stage, and I don't think they just have what it takes to compete with the best teams in the world. So Napoli right around even money to win the game right now. You can take them on the money line or minus 0.5. It's the exact same bet. And whichever price you can find better. Sometimes books offer different prices for either one of those lines, even though the outcome is the exact same. So whatever price you can get that's around even money, I would go with Napoli in this game.
All right, Nick, last game up, we got Sunday, Roma at Atalanta. I believe I'm saying that right. Minus 0.25 in a total of 3 to finish us off, Nick.
Yeah, just an extra A instead of Atalanta, just an extra A they got in there. But just 2 points separate these teams in the standings. You would not guess that to be the case 2 months ago. They came out as expected. They won 4-0 in their first game, but then they proceeded to go winless in their next 9 matches, including being eliminated from the Europa League. So they were unable to score in 7 of those 9 matches. It was a head scratcher to watch them go through that. I had a read on them that they were going to be one of the top 4 teams in the league this year, and it was odd to watch that happen. But they look like they've rounded that corner, and they're actually the number 1 scoring team in the league right now with 44 goals. So with 7 of 9 games being held scoreless and now up to the number 1 team, you can kind of see how lethal their attack is. They've scored 11 goals in the last 2 games. They were close to handing Juventus their first loss of the season. They were up 2-1 until Ronaldo, who didn't start that game, was brought in and scored with 10 minutes left. So they can play with the best of them. They look much more like the team I expected them to be now after that rough 9-game stretch. But my read on them, I felt like it was dead wrong after watching them go through that, but they seem to have really, really improved lately. Understanding them it's pretty simple. They go as Duvan Zapata goes. He went scoreless during that 9-game win streak, but he has come alive and is on absolute fire right now. He scored in 8 straight games, and he's got a total of 14 goals in those 8 games, and he actually scored 4 goals in their last game. So if you can find a way to shut him down, you can beat this team. If not, it's a struggle to play against them. Roma's had similar ups and downs this season. They started almost identically, winning their first game, then they went winless in their next 5. They then played their next 10 games with just 1 loss and looked to have turned the corner, but then went on another stretch of 5 winless games. So you can see soccer is just teams can get very, very streaky, and it's trying to find the teams when they're just like the stock market, I guess, right before it's going to collapse or right before they're going to go on their run. So right now they're playing well again. They've got 5 wins out of their last 6, including 4 in a row. But Atalanta will be tough. The last 8 meetings, they've only beat Atalanta 1 time. Earlier this year, they played to a 3-3 draw. Atalanta actually had the halftime lead 3-1, but they let Roma come back and earn that draw 3-3 at the end of the game. That game saw 21 shots on goal, which is extremely high for a soccer match. On average, Serie A games produce half of that at 10.5 shots per game. So very offensive-minded teams. And they're still putting up shots right now in the league because Roma's number 1 in the league actually at shots on goal, and Atalanta's number 4th. So we should see plenty of chances here in this game. Roma doesn't necessarily have the big name strikers. They have Edin Dzeko up front, but this year he really hasn't scored like he has in the past. They've been doing most of their scoring from the midfield and backline positions. So I think that could hurt Atalanta in this game. Atalanta likes to press forward, and they like to get the ball to Zapata to do all their damage. So they can get caught on the counterattack pretty often, and that's kind of how Roma's been playing this year. So I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities in this game for both teams. I think Zapata is going to continue his goal streak. He's going to get on the board. Atalanta's going to feed him up front, and at the same time, I think Roma's going to catch them on the counterattack when they do that. So The over is a way to play this one. I mean, the trends are all pointing that way. Atalanta is the number one over team in the league. They've had 14 of 20 matches this year reach at least 3 goals scored, and that includes that 9-game stretch earlier this season. So in their last 12 games, all but one game has reached 3 goals scored. So really playing some offensive soccer lately. And Roma, they're on the similar run. They've had 7 of their last 9 matches reach at least 3 goals scored. So I think that's what's going to happen here in this game. I think we're going to see a ton of chances and hopefully balls in the net. So my official free play this week, Drew, is over 3 goals in this game, it's currently priced around -110 right now.
All right, great stuff, Nick. And guys, Nick, 5% top-rated plays year to date, 14-7, 67%. He's 12-7 in soccer, 2-0 in golf. He has one in each going this weekend. You can get one in his PGA Farmers 5-pack with his 5% top-rated play going in golf this weekend. Also his Saturday Bundesliga 5% top-rated play at sportsmemo.com, and you can get that one in soccer for half off using the coupon code NICKHALF at checkout. Nick, thanks for the time. Guys, thanks for listening. Best of luck with your bets. We'll be back tomorrow with Teddy Covers breaking down college basketball and NBA betting cards.